because you're right. It's not enough to simply grow it.
Mm-hmm.
There's other steps involved and more work that has to be done for it to be impactful.
You can successfully grow plants anywhere. All you need are 3 basic elements: light, nutrients, and water. If you're new to gardening, a seasoned gardener, or a plant angel of death, I can help you. My name is Tom, and welcome to the Small Scale Gardening Podcast. Welcome to the Small Scale Gardening Podcast on the Small Scale Life Network. I'm your host, Tom. Thank you for listening and coming back to the Small Scale Gardening Podcast. The first podcast did beyond my expectations, so thank you so much for listening to that podcast. I am very humbled. Thank you so much. And this is episode 2 of the Small Scale Gardening Podcast. So remember, if you like this podcast, if you like what I'm talking about, make sure you share this with some friends. I think you're going to want to on this one. This is a great podcast. It's going to have a lot of information about aquaponics, about people doing big things, bigger than they are. So I think you'll be inspired. I'm really excited to bring this one to you. Make sure you go over to smallscalegardening.com. It's our sister site to the flagship at smallscalelife.com. And this is where all the gardening stuff is going to be. We're going to be gardening there, talking about gardening in small spaces, making the most of those, and talk about wicking beds, self-watering planter systems, just like the intro said. So I'm pretty excited about it. I'll be adding content to it. Make sure you head over there and follow us. We're on Facebook, Instagram, other places, but make sure you go to smallscalegardening.com. So in today's episode, and maybe it sounds a little different than this intro, hopefully you can hear the crickets back there. I'm out in the garage. Garage days, right? It's like your garage band back in the day. But I'm in the garage. I've got some meat smoking for later on this month for my family coming over. It's going to be great. In today's episode, I've got a really good one for you. Talk a lot to my friend Michael Bell down at Dallas Half Acre Farm, and he recommended another Texas tornado to me. So in this podcast episode, we are interviewing a gentleman by the name of Drew Demler from Big Tex Urban Farms in Dallas, Texas. So Drew is a husband, he's a father, and he's an all-around busy guy. He's incredibly busy with what he's doing over there, and that's why I call him that Texas tornado. I don't know what it is about you all in Texas. You guys are busy, you're doing big things. I guess that's, everything's bigger, better in Texas, right? So Drew and his crew at Big Tex Urban Farms are on a mission. And they are on a mission to provide 1 million meals in the Dallas-Fort Worth area from their aquaponic farm located on the State Fair of Texas in Dallas. So they're on the state fairgrounds and they're growing incredible amounts of food. It's awesome. I kid you not. This is a really good interview. They've got a great mission. They are being the change in their community. So this is going to be a great conversation. I hope you really enjoy it. Grab a drink, kick back, or work on your garden. Do some canning, but listen to this podcast. Listen to my conversation with Drew Demler. I hope you enjoy it. Again, share this. This is big stuff, and these people are doing some really good things. And just remember, you can do this where you are. You can do this in your neighborhood. It doesn't have to be 1 million meals. But maybe you have your extra produce. Maybe you could put that out for somebody. They might enjoy it. They might get some nutrition that's sorely needed. So think about it. What can you do in your neighborhood to build your community, strengthen your community? Now, without further ado, here's my conversation with Drew Demler from Big Tex Urban Farms. Got Drew Demler from Big Tex Urban Farms down in Texas. This is awesome. So glad you're here. How you doing today?
Good, man. It's finally summertime down here in Dallas at the State Fair. We have a big hydroponic greenhouse and a parking lot, more or less, that we farm in, and it is hot today.
Ooh,
but
hot.
Good, but doing good otherwise.
Hot. That's the way we like it. Growing food on asphalt, I love it. And that's something I did with a small little wicking bed, couple little wicking bed systems back in the day, just a couple years ago. It tells us that we can grow food anywhere, can't we?
Anywhere. Absolutely. That's one of the big points that we try to make with our project. We feel like, man, if we can grow it in this parking lot, in this concrete, you can do it at home. You can do it anywhere, for sure.
Exactly. And what's one of the things you hear people that come through your exhibit or your working exhibit, really? What do you hear people say most of the time?
It's in regards to the whole thing, honestly, especially when people walk into our hydroponics facility, our greenhouse, a lot of times we're providing people with their first ever exposure to that kind of technology. So we definitely get a lot of wows, which feels really good. And then even when we take them outdoors and kind of tell a little bit more about the history of what we've done and how we grow outdoors, where we actually use mobile custom-made planter beds outdoors, that turns some heads too.
Oh, yeah. Now we're talking. This is great. I was thinking they're like, oh, my gosh, how could I do this? Or I kill everything.
We definitely get a lot of that too, sure.
And the old, I kill everything. Oh, my gosh, how are you doing this, right?
That's right. I tell everyone, hey, there's only one way to get better at it, right?
Yep.
Only one way.
You got to learn through failure, practice, kill them all, and then grow them again.
That's right. Yes, sir. I tell them, man, if you knew how many plants I had killed in my lifetime, you'd be amazed.
I was a little embarrassed. Here's the big garden blogger guy, and I had my seedlings. I had like 70 tomato plants and 100 and some pepper plants, and I wasn't quite set up for this year. I needed to get some new grow lights and situated. We're in a small house in Minneapolis, and I moved everything. I said, we'll try natural light. A couple weeks later, everything's pretty much dead, and I was like, I need to get some LEDs. This is wrong. And then I went to harden them off, and I left them out in this big rainstorm. Killed a whole bunch more, so I was like, I don't think I'll be blogging about that anytime soon.
Yeah. It happens.
It does.
That's life. Life as a gardener, life as a farmer. That's
right.
it for sure.
Absolutely. Feast or famine.
Feast or famine, no doubt.
It is funny. It is funny. So let's talk about you a little bit, introduce you, because there's folks out there that don't know anything about you and don't know how we connected. So who is Drew Demler? Who are you?
I love it. I love the question.
Yeah.
So my official title is the Director of Horticulture for the State Fair of Texas.
Nice. Very
So
official.
we're responsible for still a lot of the ornamental plants and so forth that we use out here during the fair itself, and for a lot of the other special events that go on here in Fair Park. I'm also the head grower for the Big Tex Urban Farms, which is our new farming initiative.
Sure.
Again, where we're growing using hydroponics and then these specialty raised beds outdoors.
Yeah.
And maybe one of the most important things that I hope people will know about me is that I'm somebody who will drop everything at the drop of a hat to help somebody. And that's really kind of the main point of our farm. We're located here in a food desert. So we provide free produce to different nonprofit groups in our area in South Dallas, Southern Dallas.
Cool.
And then we also use our farm to create educational opportunities about how to grow things, how to eat better, how to live a healthier lifestyle. All of that is kind of encompassed in the farm.
Nice.
So, yes, sir, it's just a blessing to be able to do this.
Oh, I think that's fantastic. And we connected through a mutual friend of ours, Mr. Michael Bell.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Muscle.
Mr. Muscles, that's right.
He's had a lot.
Mike he's a great guy, isn't he?
Oh God, yes, and so passionate, and I can't wait to have him back on the show. He's had so much change this year. When our audience finally catches up to us and I finally get this podcast recorded out, people are going to go, "Oh my God, what happened?" And wow.
Yes, absolutely.
Incredible.
He's always a man on the go, that's for certain.
That's true, whether it's in the gym, in school, or on his farm. So, yeah.
Never stops.
So, talk about never stopping. How did you start? Oh, one more thing. Happy anniversary, by the way. I thought that was awesome.
Thank you.
Saw that on Facebook. And you're a husband and a dad and got all these things going. So, congratulations on that. And
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that, Tom.
Hopefully
15 years, man. 15 years, and it goes fast, I tell you.
Oh, it does. I'm at 25, and Jules is great. And
oh, man.
Yeah, so this is our 25th anniversary this year. So we're going to get out to
congrats.
Hawaii.
That's a big accomplishment.
Yeah,
good job.
Yeah, so much blessings to you guys and doing good things. I think that comes around and helps out, too. Just everything is connected, so...
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how did you get your start into the gardening journey? How did you get going down this path? Because I think we're kind of weird, right? I mean, people geeking out on flowers and plants and veggies and stuff. They're probably like, oh, my gosh, who is this guy? So how did you get your start?
Man, I tell you what, I've had a long, winding road and just probably one of the more unique careers in this business, I would say. I started out just working in the nursery business when I was in high school, and I never stopped. I eventually wound up on a landscape crew gained a ton of experience, just fell in love with it.
Sure.
Around the time I was in my early 20s, I had reason to move to Austin, Texas.
Okay.
At the time, out of Baton Rouge, which is where I'm from.
Oh, wow.
And wound up taking a job at what at the time was the largest independent retail garden center in Austin. Took the job, quickly became a manager, was able to turn that into my own landscape and nursery biz.
Cool.
Which that lasted for about 6 years before it ultimately didn't work out, which was, crushing at the time, of course, but you just never know where life's going to take you. From there, I was able to get a job at the Dallas Arboretum as one of their horticultural managers over there, and I worked there for 6 months. And then the greenhouse manager position for the State Fair of Texas became available. And you have to know, like I say, I'm from Louisiana. I don't know anything about the State Fair, if I'm honest about it. I knew about the Texas OU game.
Sure, absolutely.
And maybe a little bit about Big Tex.
Uh-huh.
So our former State Fair president, who was a huge horticulture buff, called me up one day and said, "Hey, I've got a job opening, and I just want to see if you might be interested in it."
Sure.
So he starts describing this wonderful greenhouse facility that he has. It's right next to the Texas Star Ferris wheel, one of our most iconic rides.
Sure.
And it just started describing it. It just sounded so deadgum interesting. I was like, yeah, I'm going to come try this.
Sign me up.
So he signed me up, exactly. So, Tom, my first, 5 years on the job, all we did was grow ornamentals.
Oh, okay.
It was all strictly, we were growing palm trees, bougainvilleas, and hanging baskets. And then in 2016, we had undergone kind of a management change.
Sure.
And our new State Fair president, our current State Fair president, Mitchell Gleber is his name, really challenged the company to kind of change our direction.
Okay.
And to become more community-minded.
Sure.
And to be a better neighbor here in South Dallas. Jason Hayes, who at the time was our creative director, he's now the vice president of branding. He knew that I knew how to grow vegetables and everything. So he and I kind of met and pitched the idea to the company of creating a garden in one of the unused parking lots. We get criticized a lot for having too much concrete and
Sure.
that doesn't get used throughout the year. It's only used for parking and it's hot and everything. So we're like, why don't we take one of these lots and come up with a method to where we can grow produce?
Yeah.
We pitched the idea. They liked it. They gave us a small budget in 2016. And we kind of came up with this model so where we actually start with a pallet, Tom. It's just a standard shipping pallet.
Sure.
And we use old sign material that we're no longer using, that we used to run along our fence line. And we cut it into strips and staple it across the top of the pallet. So it's breathable. It's very similar to a shade cloth.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's breathable. It allows water to drain through perfectly well, but it holds the dirt in place, so the dirt doesn't just wash down through the pallet.
Yeah.
And then we have a specially designed collar system. You just fold the thing open, and you put them down on top, and they're customizable as far as the depth. So some of our beds are just one layer deep, which is like 7.5 inches for things like beans and radishes that don't require a lot of soil volume.
Yep.
And then on to the larger fruited things like tomatoes and peppers and so forth, we'll double stack them and sometimes triple stack them.
Oh, wow.
To give us the depth that we use. Then we fill them with potting soil and compost, and away we go, man. We're growing.
Wow. That almost sounds like one big grow bag. You've got your own homemade grow bag just out of different material.
In essence, it is.
Yeah.
And the beauty part about the system for us, because it sits on top of the pallet,
you can move it.
We can move them. Exactly. We use a forklift primarily, and you just pick them up and we put them on trailers.
Nice.
So our original grow space was just south of the Cotton Bowl Stadium.
Sure.
And the issue there was when the State Fair would come around, that area is used as a shopping pavilion tent.
Okay.
And a bunch of food booths. So guess what? My garden has to go.
You're moving.
So we would literally load those dudes up onto trailers, and then move them. And we moved them. I mean, anywhere we could find a spot. We would just tuck them away here and there, back of the house areas, and anywhere.
Sure.
And that allowed us to continue to grow, which was really cool. So that was our first year. So then in 2017, the company decided to expand our program. We had made a couple of really good key connections in the community.
Sure.
In South Dallas, and we developed a neat partnership with the Baylor Scott and White Health and Wellness Institute right down the street in an area called Mill City.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And it just so happened that our first year of growing, it was their first year to do a farmer's market. And keep in mind, this is in an area that there are no grocery stores.
Yeah,
there's nothing but fried chicken joints.
Yep.
And corner stores.
Yeah.
You know, beer joints and this kind of thing. Mm-hmm. No healthy food. So they decided to host a farmer's market at their wellness institute. So we began donating the produce that we grow to them. And we've developed it. We've since grown it. It started out, it was every Friday they would do this market. Now it's every Tuesday and Friday.
Oh, wow.
So we've expanded to a couple of days, and it's a place where people, and the produce that we give to them, we have our own special table, and that produce is free for the community to come and get. Anyone in the community can come and get it. So they're diabetic patients,
sure,
or they're the people who are suffering from heart disease and so forth. It's a place where they can come and get their fresh produce.
That's cool.
Which is great.
Yeah, that's totally cool. We had an operation up here, I think we still do, right in the Twin Cities. It's in Minneapolis, just south of downtown, and they were kind of bumping into, they had a hydroponic operation, and they were growing lettuce and all kinds of greens.
Yes.
Their problem, and they had another fenced off area where they were in the ground and growing all kinds of stuff, but their problem was they couldn't get it out to the neighborhood in need just to the south of them. They didn't know how to do that. So that was a bottleneck in their system, is they can grow it, but how do they distribute it? And this is an interesting way to get that going. Yeah,
that's a big part of it too. Mm-hmm. So since that time, so in 2017, our next evolution was to get into hydroponics, which we did at a very small scale initially. We built what's called a deep water culture tank.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had 6 of those upright vertical towers, the tower gardens.
Yeah.
So we started cranking out lettuce. We made a really great connection with a company called Hort Americas, which more about our relationship with them in a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But also, as we continue to grow more, we continue to find other partners in the community.
So
we started partnering with other groups that specialize in doing that, in distributing produce to the community that already were getting food out into this community in need.
Gotcha.
And we just started working through them and with them, not only supplying them with fresh produce, which they weren't getting very much of, if any, but also on food educational programs.
Mm-hmm.
So we're doing cooking demonstrations at the Wellness Institute now.
Cool.
There's a amazing lady at a group we work with called City Square who's doing a culinary training.
Wow.
And we grow microgreens and greens and herbs for her that she uses in her training program. And then there's a cafe at Bonton Farms, which is another amazing group doing some really cool things. And they use our lettuce in their culinary program as well. So finding the right groups to work with was really critical to us expanding our reach too.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
That sounds like it, yeah.
Because you're right. It's not enough to simply grow it.
Mm-hmm.
There's other steps involved and more work that has to be done for it to be impactful. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. No, that's really cool, and I'm glad you're doing that, because there are areas, even here in the Twin Cities and all these big cities, where the small mom and pop grocery stores have gone, and maybe Walmart is 10 miles away or something, but they kind of suck up a lot of people. But not everybody drives, and not everybody can't get out of their house, or they just don't know. And then there's nothing there for them, right? So
exactly. That's a big issue down here, man. Is it's lack of transportation, and we do have public transportation, but it's not enough. It's not like New York City or Chicago or some of these other cities that are a little better set up for that.
Right.
And that's definitely a big problem down here as well.
Definitely. Wow. Cool. So working with these other groups, that's a really good way. I'm going to have to circle around to those folks in the Twin Cities and see if they figured out their distribution problem.
Yes, man. And I was going to tell you also, Tom, if you can connect them to me,
or
if you have any connections, I would love to visit with them.
Yeah.
Love to.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Very cool. So, okay, so you've got your deep water tank. I think I watched a video way back. Was that last year you were building the deep water tank and all that good stuff?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I was watching a video and you were putting together like the double layers of green treat, and you were talking about just one layer wasn't enough because you get that hydraulic pressure on there and it could blow the side out of your
Absolutely.
of your pond. Yeah, yeah. And I think you had some experience with that, if I remember right.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And I was like,
live and learn.
This is pretty cool stuff. I got to watch more of this. And then, life happens and you kind of circle back around. So yeah, I think that's awesome, man. So you've got this big hydroponic system. What else you got going on down there? What kind of
we went nuts last year in there.
Yeah.
So we started with one pond, then we built a second, even larger deep water culture pond.
Cool.
Then we added 3 rows of Dutch buckets for vine crops.
Those are cool.
We use several vertical racking systems.
Nice.
That we do everything from incubators, baby plants, to microgreens, and now we actually finish whole heads of lettuce on them.
Wow.
And then we have a couple of different nutrient film technique systems.
Uh-huh.
And who knows what we're going to come up with next. But we're not done. We still have a little space in there, so we're going to custom design some different systems in there next. So
cool.
Yes,
cool.
sir.
You all are pushing the limits then. That's awesome.
We are.
So
we continue to push.
So I know Michael has this problem. I mean, Dallas, you get a little bit of heat down there, My brother-in-law and sister-in-law, they just moved down to Austin, so they're down just a little south of you, and it gets hot. How are you getting water to those plants outside? Aquaponics or hydroponics, obviously you have water running all the time, but those customized grow boxes that you've got out there with the sign material and the pallets, how do you get water to those?
Man, we've tried a little bit of everything.
Mm-hmm.
We've done we tried overhead, we've tried drip, which I think drip would work better if we had more water pressure.
Yeah, yep.
But we don't. So a lot of times, I hate saying it, but we end up just watering with the hose.
Oh, okay.
Which wears us out, but it's the best we can do for right now.
Sure, sure. No, I get it. It's that's the thing that Michael runs into. Well, and he didn't have any running water at his place; he had to get it elsewhere.
Which is unbelievable, by the way.
I know. I
don't know how he makes it work.
I know. I don't know if you've been out there, but he was building those towers with the 350-gallon, totes up there. I was like, oh.
Oh, yeah.
Dude.
It's the darndest thing you ever saw, man. It really is.
It's a good thing he's the Hulk and can
do that. Oh yeah, a guy like me, I'd have no shot at that.
No,
that would no way.
No, I wouldn't either. I'd have to have like a whole army of people.
So Tom, and that's where I know we were visiting beforehand, but that's definitely your wicking beds have really inspired some thought for me, because I really think that they would be ideal for what we're doing. And I think it would be easy enough for us to retrofit our system to become wicking. So like I say, one of these days, you're going to get a phone call, and I'm just going to wear you out with questions.
No, I think
just be forewarned.
That's great. And, like we were saying before the show, I was growing stuff on my driveway, and I had the best peppers and cucumbers I've ever grown in a wicking system, and it was just a real simple, almost like they weren't quite. They were dollar store baskets with landscape fabric in it and soil, and then a little bit of like a half-inch of water in there, and it just soaked it up, and it was like go time. And I had pollinators coming in; they would get a drink in the water because it's almost like a little watering area for them too. And man, it was just it was on fire. And the one thing you have to watch out for up here is mosquitoes. You don't want to have a mosquito pond, but you let that dry out, and then you can use non-toxic mosquito dunks, and you're good to go. And
the BT dunks or what have you,
and then
perfect.
And then the other ones, the watering troughs. I mean, the water. I mean, you kind of look at it like lasagna, right? The bottom layer, your little noodles down there, that's where all the water is, and then you've got 16 inches of soil, and there's drain tile down there, and you got 16 inches of soil, and then you've got your plants growing, and so there's no way a mosquito can get down into that. There's no way. So it works out really well. It's been so far so good, knock on wood. Had to deal with some slugs that came along with the old soil, but they're done. I've been really excited about it. And the grow bags are cool too. I'm testing out some with a couple different brands, and it'll be good. It'll be a lot of fun. And that's
we use grow bags also. We have several of those that we're growing peppers in this year, and so far so good.
Yep. Same here. I mean, they just seem to be loving it. And, you're not always going to win and have success. I mean, things happen, but so far, so good.
Yes, sir. Love it.
So you're growing peppers, you're growing tomatoes, you're growing, obviously, greens like crazy. What else are you growing?
So one of my favorite things that we do inside is collard greens.
Oh.
And I assume it's just because they're inside. We actually do those mostly in our nutrient film technique systems.
Ah.
And they turn out so tender versus the outdoor product. And it never gets a hint of that bitterness that you sometimes get outdoors. Yeah. So, I mean, they're so tender, you can chiffonade them and put them raw on your salad.
Really?
That's one of the best things that I think we do, and one of the things that gets us the most attention from some of the chefs who come and visit with us, or like even at the market at Bontown, they're like, man, we love those collards. Keep those coming.
Interesting. Okay.
And what else? Let's see, what else? We do some dinosaur kale. Outdoors right now, okra is going gangbusters. Sweet potatoes, we just got through with our sweet potato planting. And then in the winter months, in fact, we're just getting to the end of the harvest of potatoes and onions. Okay. So we do a lot of root vegetables. Yep. And then in the shoulder seasons, we'll be doing carrots and radishes out there too.
Yeah. I'm testing out a few carrots right now, and they seem to be loving it. They're in the deeper wicking beds. Potatoes, oh my God, potatoes are going crazy.
I bet they are.
Yeah, they just love it. And I gotta add some more soil and keep on growing those puppies. But to
keep them going.
Yeah,
yes, yeah. I love it.
Yeah,
love it.
So I grew some sugar snap peas next to them, and these potatoes are taller than the sugar snap peas. I mean, every time I add soil, they just go, So these things are going crazy.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I was in central Wisconsin last weekend, and they have potato fields all over the place there. I was like, mine are bigger than yours out there. But
oh, that feels good, right?
It does. Take that, commercial ag. Ha!
Yeah, there you go. I love it.
40 acres of this. But, that's great. So the Dutch buckets, those are interesting. I'll get to those in a second. But your nutrient film technique. Now, I've looked at hydroponics, but I am not totally familiar with that. What is the NFT system? Describe that a little bit, and I'll learn something.
It is very simple. Uh-huh. You're growing in a long, narrow, basically it looks like a rain gutter almost.
Oh, good.
I'm
familiar with that.
They're channels. Yep. We call them channels.
Okay.
And each of the channels just sits on top of a very basic metal stand.
Okay.
With a slight slope, so the front end is going to be a couple inches lower than the back end, and then you have a plastic reservoir of water with just a basic aquarium pump that sits in the base of it.
Yeah.
And that pump pumps the water from the reservoir through just a very basic drip irrigation system. And each of the channels has a spaghetti tube, a drip irrigation tube that feeds into it.
Sure.
And depending on the system, you might have one per channel or two per channel. It just depends on the brand that you're using, or if you've made your own.
Sure.
And then you just keep a steady trickle of water flowing across the bottom of the channel.
Interesting.
Very thin layer. Different people do it differently. We keep ours going 24 hours a day. Some people, do it cyclically, like maybe 3 hours on, 3 hours off, something like that.
Sure.
And everyone, each person will tell you that their way is the best.
Okay.
We do ours.
Of course.
We run ours 24 hours. And the theory is, Tom, the bottom of those roots will wick up all the moisture and the nutrients that they need, and the upper portion of the root system stays elevated above the water level so they can respirate.
Nice.
So they're getting all of the oxygen that they need.
Cool. Yes. I totally
and
get it. It's
definitely one of the easier DIY type hydroponic systems.
Yeah.
To where you could go home. In fact, I have a system. And I'll shoot you some pictures of all this stuff, all you want. But there's one system that I built right before the fair last year that, I think I built it in probably 3-4 hours for maybe a couple $100 total supplies.
Sure.
So, these are something that you could do at home in a garage, or, if you have as long as you have a grow light or something indoors. It's something that a homeowner could throw up really quickly.
That's cool, because I ran I called it a vertical garden, but I took a rain gutter and I put soil in it and was growing stuff in it last year. But the main problem is, and I said this at the time, is you've got to water this thing daily because you're surrounded by air, you're in the heat, it's going to dry out just like that, and you need to keep it hydrated. But this, you've got water running, and that's a really good way to counter that. And you'd have to have a grow light. You'd have if you're going to invest that kind of thing, you might want it inside in Minnesota because we do get kind of cold. I don't know if anybody told you that.
Yeah, I've heard.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons I've kind of been scared about aquaponics, hydroponics, is we get down to the minus 20s in the winter, and pumps and me don't go. There's two reasons. We get really cold, and me and pumps don't really like each other too much, so that's just the way it is.
It would be really tough to do it. You could always do it seasonally.
Yeah.
When the weather is appropriate.
Yep.
Or, for us, we just look at it as all the hydroponic systems as something you need to do climate controlled.
Yeah. Yep. How about pest pressure? Do you get an attack of aphids or thrips or something like that? I mean,
periodically.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. We try to be really diligent about how we enter the building and so forth, and but yes, we get flare ups. In fact, we've had some spider mites we've noticed over the last little bit of time. Trying to get on some of our vine crops.
Oh, yeah.
And that'll be something we'll have to probably just watch for the rest of the summer.
Yep. It's constant pressure. I mean, just last year I had slugs, and I had the cabbage loopers or lopers, or the cabbage worm guys, and squash borers, and it's like the plague. You're always dealing with something. And a couple of years ago, I was growing lettuce inside, and I got aphids, and they just devastated everything. I mean, they were just nasty little buggers. So
they can just overrun you. And we do we never spray any pesticides, but very occasionally we'll use something like neem oil or something that's OMRI listed.
Yep.
If we need to knock something down.
Yeah. Because sometimes, those little DIY, mix some of this and some of that and a little cayenne pepper and spray, and you're like, I don't know, it didn't work. Didn't even done to. You got to have something.
I tell you what, though, one thing that we have had good luck with is just simply using safer soap for things like aphids.
Oh, okay.
And that we have had some good effectiveness using those.
Sure.
I don't know if it just smothers them, if that's how it works, but it. Whatever, it worked.
Yeah, totally. I get you. I've interviewed a guy, Terrence Lehue. He's an organic inspector, and he inspects these farms and does the whole inspection process, certification process. So, do you get that in your side, like in the hydroponic and all that stuff? Do you go for that? Are you interested in that? I mean, is that some area you're looking at, or how does that work for you?
Not right now.
Yeah.
Right now, hydroponics as a whole is not. You're not able to get organic certification using hydroponics, and it just based on us and the fact that we're 100% donation based.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't make sense for us to go for that.
Yep.
If that ever changed, it would be something, or if we ever did another venture for other purposes, it's something we would pursue.
Sure.
But no, I'm very confident that the hydroponics systems are probably the absolute most environmentally friendly way to grow, in my opinion, at least for our area, for sure. And that's good enough for me for now.
Sure. Now, why do you say that? Just out of curiosity.
I love it. Okay, so to start with, water use is so greatly reduced. To give you some idea, yesterday we topped off our one of our reservoirs in my deep water culture ponds, and we're doing that about every 2 weeks right now because it's warm.
Yeah.
And the hose ran for maybe an hour and a half to top it off.
Sure.
Versus outside, where water in my outside produce this time of year, we're running that hose probably at least a couple hours every single day.
Yeah.
So the water efficiency is I got to be 90% better. And on top of that, our fertilizer never gets into the environment at all.
Right.
It stays right there in the reservoir. It never goes anywhere. So organic or not or non-organic. I know that there are times with like nitrate levels around
Sure.
farms and outdoor gardens, where too much of it is leaching off into waterways and so forth, and
Yep.
that can cause issues.
Yep.
And whereas in hydroponics, there is none of that, zero of that. The fertilizer stays right there in the system, in the reservoir.
That makes
and
Yep. Go ahead.
and I'm the first to admit that I'm not saying that we shouldn't use field agriculture. We need field agriculture.
Sure.
It's just that for things like greens and so forth, where we can use them, it makes a lot of sense environmentally to use that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And what I'm seeing, I mean, it's closed systems, right? You're not
correct.
It's not
Absolutely.
leaching out into the soil. It's not leaching down. The rain. I put fertilizer on. The rain comes. Oh, we got runoff goes in the gutter. Now it's entering the Mississippi River. Oh, there's an algae bloom downstream.
An algae bloom, of course. Yes.
Or in the back channels, because all of this stuff is floating into the pond or the creek or the Mississippi River or anything like that. Yeah, I totally get it. And what I've been seeing in these wicking beds, like I built this thing in April. Was it April or early May? Yeah, whatever. I filled it up then. I charged it then. I haven't added water at all. I mean,
wow.
I thought about it, but then we got rain. I mean, we've had rain. We have had rain. We've been blessed with that. But I haven't added water. I have added 15 gallons to the wood one that's exposed to the air. The water's exposed to the air. Probably could use some more. I was letting it dry out, make sure we don't have any mosquitoes. But that's it, 15 gallons, where every other day you're out there with a hose and you're going for, a half an hour in one little spot, and then you move it or 15 minutes or whatever, But you're charging this stuff and you're letting it do its thing, and then when the plants look like they need some more, you can charge it up. But I haven't done those 2 wicking beds. I mean, the water's down there 16, 18 inches, and it's, it's just wicking up slowly but surely. So I think that's pretty cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
I love that. I love hearing that, man. Like just the innovations that people like yourself are coming up with to save water, save resources, and make this thing more efficient. That's great.
Well, and I can't take all the credit. I'm not going to. I mean, we have some friends down in Australia. If you go wander out there on YouTube or different, websites and stuff, these folks have been dealing with dry conditions for a few years, and it's killing them. And they've really been pushing the limits. I mean, you've got Water Ups, you've got a few other producers down there, or just normal Joes creating these things, and it's like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because down where you are, hot, everything's evaporating out, and up here we've had a lot of water this year, but it gets so hot, so why not give the plants what they need? And I'm not as Larry Hall, who developed these rain gutter grow systems, said, I'm not the plant whisperer, and I'm not. I don't know. They look like they need it. I don't know. Maybe they do. Maybe they don't. But they'll wake up in it, and that's the way it is. So I think that's great. I think it's great.
Love it. Love it.
So you've got some Dutch buckets.
Yes.
Those looked really cool. I saw a little video on the Big Tex Urban Farms site, where the public affairs person or news person was like, "Oh, look at these! These are so cool!" And tell us a little bit about those. I think those look really cool, and I know you're growing some huge cucumbers on those things.
We are, man. I tell you, that's one thing that really surprised me, was how productive the cucumbers were going to be. So we use ours for growing vine crops.
Mm-hmm.
So we're cranking out tomatoes and cucumbers right now. We had bell peppers a year ago.
Sure.
Which I intend to do those again as we kind of expand. And you can also do things like eggplant.
Okay.
And I really want to try beans. I want to try pole beans because I think they would do really well. They're very, very versatile, though. I mean, you could grow just about anything you want. I have a feeling that okra would probably do really well in a Dutch bucket.
Sure.
I have a feeling that a lot of, even if you could get pollinators to them, even things like sweet corn, I bet would do great.
Oh, I bet they would.
So Dutch buckets, the way they operate, for people who haven't seen them, they're very, very similar to the nutrient technique stands. One of the differences is that or at least the way we operate ours and the way I've ever seen them operated, it's a cyclical irrigation system, versus non-stop where we do our NFT. So basically, if you haven't seen them, the Dutch buckets are just small. I think they're 2-gallon size square buckets. We fill ours with perlite.
Mm-hmm.
You can use cocoa core, or some people even use the hydroton, the little clay pebble things.
Yeah, yep.
Something that's porous that drains really well. And then you plant whatever plant you're going to. We start all of our hydroponic stuff on rock wool, so it's soilless medium.
Sure.
You don't have to. You could do. I've seen people just do regular transplants in them.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, just like with the nutrient technique systems, you have a reservoir of water with a small pump in it that pumps our nutrient solution, the water, through a very basic drip irrigation system. And each bucket in our system has 2 drip emitters. And that nutrient solution just slowly but surely gets drip irrigated into each of the buckets.
Wow.
And here's the really cool part about the bucket systems. Each of the buckets sits on top of a return line, which is just a 2-inch piece of PVC pipe with a hole drilled in it for each bucket. So the excess water that the plants don't drink up, it goes through the bottom of the bucket, through the drain hole to the return line, and then the return line, through gravity, returns it all the way down to the reservoir.
Oh, that's cool.
So we're not wasting a drop of water that way.
Yeah.
So again, much more resource efficient. We drip irrigate our plants for an hour in the morning and an hour in the afternoon. And as we've moved into the heat of the summer, I think we're going to vary that schedule up a little bit and do shorter intervals more frequently throughout the day, so that we can get them a drink when they need to cool off in the afternoons as well. A couple of different bursts throughout the afternoon to kind of keep them perky.
Huh. We all want to be perky.
Absolutely.
So I was thinking, I was thinking that there was that it went from the bottom up, but that makes sense that it goes from the top down. I guess I'll have to
top down.
Yeah, I'll have to look at that a little closer, and then it does drain. Excess water does drain back into that pipe, and then it goes to return that way. Oh, it must be tied in there. Okay, yeah, okay. Ooh, that's cool. I like that.
And this is the other system that would be very, very easy for a homeowner to go home and replicate.
Yep.
We actually built our reservoirs, or we made our own, which I haven't seen too many people do that, but it's super simple, man. We basically constructed a small deep water culture pond. We just used dimensional lumber to the size that we felt like we needed, put pond liner in it, and away you go. And we built a lid out of lumber that just sits over the top, so we're not evaporating anything, with a small notch for our plumbing to come in and out.
No, that's cool.
Away we go. Away you go. You could make these out of we have what they call the Batto buckets, which is a custom designed. It's actually a patented item.
Yep.
But you could make Dutch buckets out of empty paint buckets.
Yep.
I've seen people use like the old the laundry detergent totes that were all cleaned out. Almost anything could serve as a bucket. You just need the little fittings to allow them to drain.
Sure.
And that's it. There's no magic to that at all. So this would be a very, very cheap and easy system for a homeowner. And again, very versatile, and something that I feel like, in the right climate, you could probably do Dutch buckets outside.
Yeah.
You might have to plant seasonally, but I guarantee you could get tomatoes to grow in Dutch buckets outdoors for sure.
Yeah. No, this is very similar to some of the concepts that, again, this Larry Hall gentleman from Brainerd, Minnesota, who just recently passed away, he was coming up with using rain gutters and PVC pipes and that kind of stuff. I think he looked at them and he kind of crafted his own system using grow bags or these 5-gallon buckets. But it makes a lot of sense. And I think, just looking at where we're going, we're gonna need all the food we can get, right? I mean,
absolutely.
All the flooding we've had this year. I think some cropland has been taken out just because the water's been too high. And looking at crops here in Minnesota,
can't get out there and plant. It's terrible. Yeah.
Right. But here you can grow on a on a parking lot.
Absolutely. That's right.
I think it's great. So let's talk a little bit about your nutrient. Now, are you doing like, I'm sure there's big producers of this stuff, but, I'm thinking small time, but, you got this jug of that fish emulsion or, ground up fish stuff. Is that what you're kind of using on a bigger scale, or is it all more, here's a jug of this, a jug of that, we kind of put together, and there's your micronutrients and everything else? How does it work?
I'll tell you what we use. We start with a base fertilizer.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, to start with, we make stock solutions for everything that we do.
Okay.
And they are made with, we start with dry powdered fertilizers.
Oh, okay.
For a couple of different reasons. Number one, they store better.
Mm-hmm.
The storage life is pretty much forever.
Yeah.
On for your powder stuff. And secondly, it's cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot more economical. So we start with a base, what's called a base fertilizer. Now, we get ours from our main supplier, Hort Americas.
Mm-hmm.
They have their own custom blend. And then we supplement that base fertilizer with magnesium sulfate.
Okay.
And then we'll also, and that's what we call our B stock solution. And then separate from that, we'll mix together calcium nitrate in water, which is we keep both of them in solution in water, and then we add those in equal measure. So whatever amount of B stock solution we add to the reservoir, we also add A to it. And so the thing that's cool about the base fertilizers, you can amend with those other two ingredients, and there's a ton of formulas online, and you can customize them that way for your different crops.
Sure.
So the fertilizer that we feed all of our greens, our formula, is a little different than what we do our vine crops.
Gotcha.
It's got a little bit more of, one thing versus the other to tailor the needs to the vine crops.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. And how often are you fertilizing?
We're typically amending the water. The smaller reservoirs, which is like the nutrient film techniques, and the Dutch buckets, I'd say we amend those maybe once a week.
Okay.
Our ponds, the big deep water culture ponds, hardly ever. I mean, we make amendments to them maybe once every couple of months.
Sure. Wow.
So you can kind of charge them up with what they need, and they'll stay very stable for long periods of time because they're large bodies of water.
Sure. That's cool. Have you had any problems with algae blooms or anything like that, or stuff you don't want growing in there just because the chemistry gets a little off?
We really haven't. We do get some algae build up in all of the systems, but nothing harmful.
Yeah.
It just sort of happens.
I had
you have nutrient and water and sun.
Yep.
And you're going to get a little bit of that.
It's going to
We
happen.
keep the ponds covered as best we can. So like in any of the little spaces between the rafts and the sidewalls, we'll actually cover them with foam padding to block as much of the sun from getting on the water and stop evaporation at the same time.
Yeah. Now, how do you control the heat that builds up? Because you got things working in there, and just plants, and it gets real humid in there. You're working with a lot of water. How do you control all that?
Absolutely.
You got big fans, or?
Yes, we're actually pretty blessed. It sounds better than it is, but we actually have heating and air. So we have AC in there.
Okay.
Which I'll tell you, at this time of year, unfortunately, it's really inadequate.
Yeah.
The AC that we have, we really need to have either a larger unit or another unit, which hopefully someday we'll be able to get. So it still gets pretty warm in there.
Sure.
But most growers down here are using just a combination of shade cloth over the top and a wet wall.
Yep.
Wet wall. And last year it was a real hot summer. And it made it really tough on a lot of the producers down here. But what a lot of us will do is kind of change the way we grow for the summertime, where we'll double up the number of heads that we're planting and then turn them at a smaller size. So that helps eliminate bolting.
Sure.
And a lot of the other issues that you can get. Tip burn and some of the other issues that you can have if you leave them in the water too long. And then in the wintertime, you can kind of thin the numbers and allow them to grow to a larger size.
Yeah. No, those are techniques that even a backyard gardener could use, because we deal with
for sure,
the heat,
definitely,
and the bugs and all, then the cool down and all that stuff. So, yep. That's good stuff. That's real good. Eat your heart out, Michael. Ha, they've got AC. Ha, ha, ha. No, I'm just kidding. Love you, man.
That's right.
Poor guy's sweating like a storm out there in his poor tunnels, and you got air conditioning.
I'm telling you.
Oh, man. So if someone wanted to start with their own hydroponic system in their backyard, I mean, we've talked about a couple options with the Dutch buckets, the NFT systems. Where would you? I mean, if you were going to set one up at your house today, where would you start?
That's a great question. Ironically enough, I would probably build my own small deep water culture pond.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's what I think I would do.
Mm-hmm.
And I would probably want to grow like a variety of different things in there. I would probably plant like some kale, maybe a few herbs, and then some lettuce heads.
Yeah.
Kind of mix it up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing I like about the deep water, and that one thing that's so good for us here in this area in Texas especially, you have a little bit of buffering space there in case something bad happens.
Yeah.
So like in NFT especially, if you lose your pump or you use your electric supply, you can be in trouble pretty quickly.
Yes.
Because those plants get really, really basically addicted to that steady flow of water. So when that's interrupted, you got 30 minutes to react in this heat, or you're going to start to have problems.
Oh, wow.
Within an hour or so, you could be losing some plants if you're not careful.
Ooh.
In deep water, you can lose the pump, you can lose your power and so forth, and chances are you're going to be able to react plenty fast enough to get your systems back online. And the thing is, they're very customizable systems. So you could build it doesn't have to be a big ponds like we have. It could be small systems that you can build at your house that could hold a couple of styrofoam rafts.
Yep.
And that would be plenty enough to crank out a lot of food.
Yeah,
a lot of food.
That's what I've seen some people do, especially homesteaders. They cut the top, like I get one of those big IBC totes, cut it in half.
Yes.
They can have basically, I don't know if that's considered a deep water pond or not, but they can run it like that, and
absolutely. I mean, I've seen people do some pretty neat systems where they would just take those snap lid totes from Home Depot, cut holes in the lids, and just use what's called a net pot to hold their starters in.
Yep.
And you just drop the little net pots in your holes and throw an air stone in the bottom to create disturbance in the water.
Sure.
And oxygenate the water.
Sure.
Same kind of air stones that you would use in an aquarium.
Yeah.
You could buy them at an aquarium store, and boom. I mean, I've seen some really good stuff grown in those. So, yeah, I mean, there's really easy ways to do this stuff for the homeowner. Yeah, sure.
My mind is starting to churn because I want to grow some greens inside. I'm kind of tapped out on space outside, so that might
you
be.
You can do it.
Yeah, I can do it. I can do it. Yeah, I'm going to try that. I think that's a great idea because we need some greens. It would be great to knock that off our grocery list and to just show that we can do it too. And
absolutely.
Somebody like you go, yes, I've converted another one.
Make for some great videos too, man. Right?
Oh yeah. Well, and
I'm watching. I'd watch.
Well, I like fish tanks and those kind of pumps. It's the bigger pumps that freak me out. So I can handle those air stones and that kind of stuff. I think that's a cool system. So. Yeah. So how did you get to know Michael Bell in the first place? Where did you two first run cross paths?
It's funny. Probably like a lot of us, in the small farming biz and game, I came across his Instagram page. And he was at the time, kind of like you say, kind of transitioning. So he hasn't been quite as active, but he was very, very active online, which. Anybody who's doing this for a living or trying to make money at this, I highly recommend that.
Yep.
You need to tell your story. And he does a great job of that. And I started watching his posts and seeing some of his little story videos and whatnot. And I realized he started talking about where the area of Dallas he was in. And I'm like, dang, man, this guy's like 4 or 5 miles down the street from me, and he's doing big stuff. I was like, man, I got to meet this guy.
Yeah.
So one day I messaged him and told him, I was like, hey, this is what I do, and just wanted to introduce myself and see if we could meet sometime. And he shot me a message right back. And I think he showed up at my greenhouse like maybe 2-3 days later.
Oh, wow.
And I gave him a tour of the whole place, of the indoor stuff and our outdoor parking lot section. And then I think about another couple of days later, I went and visited him at his farm.
Sure.
Which is just such an accomplishment. But and he and I just became, I mean, we just hit it off. We hit it right off. And we just have a lot of areas in common.
Gotcha.
And we've been in each other's ear ever since.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And does he Marco Polo you too?
No, I haven't had that experience with him, no.
Oh, man, you got to get on the Marco Polo trip, man.
I need to, man. I need to, for sure.
There you go. You'll work on your video talking, and it's a great way. You don't have to text everything, right? You can just.
I love that, man. I'll have to get on him about that and be like, hey, man, how come you don't Marco Polo me?
You're not in the circle. You're not in the circle of
I'm
trust.
not in the
You're
circle.
outside.
I guess not.
It's like what was that? Meet the Fockers, where it was here's the circle and the little dot. Here's you outside the dot, or outside.
That's right. So, man, for people who don't know Michael, he's a small farmer.
Yep.
He's a teacher. Is his prime gig. Started a farm on a half an acre. Does just an incredible job.
Yes.
There was actually no running water on his place, and somehow worked out a deal to borrow the neighbor's water and creates his own irrigation systems to his caterpillar tunnels, and grows, I mean, just a really great salad mix. Guy's like a 260-pound bodybuilder. On top of that, does personal training and all this other stuff. I don't know how he has time for it. I mean, he's really been an inspiration for me, for sure.
Absolutely, and he's been a regular here on my podcast on smallscalelife.com, and it's just been so much fun talking to him every chance I can to find out what's going on and what's working, what's not. And I was talking to him before he got the tunnels, because I think I started talking to him back in 2017. How did I think we met through Instagram. I don't even remember how we got connected, but it's been just so much fun to talk to him. Like every couple months, I'll have him on the show, and I just wanted to kind of trace him and how things were going. And it's been great because we did a health and fitness thing at the beginning of the year, and I interviewed him for a couple of those episodes. And he's just got so much knowledge about things. He's so passionate. It's so much fun to talk to him, and I can't wait. We're trying to see if we can get down your way next year. There's some races and stuff my wife runs, and see our brother-in-law and sister-in-law and stuff. We're going to try to get down there. So, Magnolia, you got to go see Chip Gaines and all that stuff. Chip and Joanna.
Oh, yeah, of course. Of course.
I'm like, hey, we got to go north, and now we got 2 places to visit. So I think that's great.
Oh, man, that'd be amazing. And we can show you about 150 other places down here that'd be well worth your time.
I think that's great. It does sound like with Bootstrap Farmer and their farming products and just some of the there's some good camaraderie down there. There's a good group of people building a community of farmers and aquaponics and hydroponic people, and just I think it's really great. I think it's great what y'all are doing.
Man, I appreciate that, and yes, sir, it's really it's really a movement down here, and everyone is kind of getting behind it, and we're all starting to work together now, and it's great to see.
Yeah,
it has really been something to see.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. So what's your favorite farm down there?
Oh man, that's a toss up. There's a couple of guys down here that I really respect. Of course, there's Michael, Dallas Half Acre Farm.
Ding! He wanted me to ask you that question.
He's the guy. I'll always just have mad respect for him. The other guys that I like to keep up with, and luckily one of them I get to work with on a regular basis is Bonton Farms, which if you don't know of them, they do some very similar work to us. They're right down the road from us in southern Dallas, and they started a farm on the banks of the Trinity River, and they basically, it's in a really rough neighborhood, and they started this farm, and their main motives were to try and hire people from the neighborhood and give them a chance at a career.
Gotcha.
So he's developed a marketplace at his farm now, where they, it's a wonderful cafe.
Cool.
And it's really more about growing the people.
Nice.
So they employ people with, different life challenges, we'll say, and they help them work through that. And they've done some amazing stuff. And we get to work with them quite a bit on different things now.
I think I've seen Instagram where he's your Instagram feed where he's come on over to your place and you got pictures with him and stuff. So yeah,
and vice versa. Yep. Yes, sir. Yeah, we visit with one another on a regular basis. The other guy I like real well down here is Profound Micro Farms. Jeff Bednar, and he's a fellow hydroponic grower, and did one of the coolest things I've seen in this area. He specializes in selling directly to chefs.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Which is a great niche and a great way, I think, to get this local produce out there. And the demand was exceeding what he was able to produce himself. So he started a local food aggregate. He calls Profound Foods, where he goes out and helps other farmers in this area sell their food through him. Wow. So he takes on a lot of the marketing aspect of it.
Sure.
So he produces like a fresh sheet, an availability sheet, and he delivers it to all these different chefs down here in the area, based on what all these different farms in the area have, which has been, I know, very, very helpful to a lot of these local farmers down here.
Very cool.
So yeah, those are my guys. There's several other people I can tell you about, but those are probably three of the biggest ones that I respect the most.
Well, and Michael threw that little question in there to see if he could stump you, so you answered correctly.
I love it.
I like. Give me a question.
He knows he's my guy.
Yeah, he knows. I said, give me a question that'll stump him. He was on a podcast, and the guy, the interviewer, asked me, give him a question that'll kind of get him to smile, and I asked him to ask about rabbits because he was having trouble with rabbits last year. He loves those rabbits, doesn't he? Yeah. So he called me up afterwards like, "Oh, you dog."
Yeah, that's great, man. So I love it.
You always got to tweak a little bit, So awesome. Well, this has been really fun. I really enjoyed this, and I'll be checking back in with you because I think you're going to be doing some cool things. Well, you'll be checking back in with me too. So I think that's great. Is there anything you want to tell the audience before we kind of shut the podcast down, or anything you'd like?
Yeah, man, I will. I would like to. I mentioned before, we're going to be designing and building some new systems. We still have a little bit of area inside my greenhouse. If you're in the DFW area, if you happen to be around fair time, my greenhouse is open to the public for the 24-day state fair run. We would love to see you. If you happen to be in town in and around that time frame, we would love to have you come out and visit us. And you can learn more about our project off of the company website at that's bigtex.com. Or you can also just follow my Instagram. I'm pretty active. I'll keep you up with what's going on, and that's just my name. It's Drew Demler. DEMLER on Instagram. That's probably the best places to get more info.
Very cool.
About what we have going on. But yeah, we would love to have you down too, Tom, sometime if you're able to make that trip down, or anybody for that matter. If you can message me, get a message in to me if you ever want to, if you're in the area in Dallas and want to come out for a visit. We'd love to have you.
Very cool. No, I appreciate that, and I know. The Urban Farm has a Facebook page. It's probably one of the first places we connected, but also Instagram, definitely. And I connected with those other folks, too, that you talked about, and I'll put links in the show notes to all this because I think it's great. You're helping the community. You're building a new community. You're doing some really cool stuff to push the envelope and push yourselves, to try new things. And I think that community part is just so important, the things you're doing.
Absolutely.
And the people and the connections. I mean, I think that is great. And And I'm happy to share whatever I got. I mean, I want you all to give it a try, and if not, at least you'll be like, maybe you should try this, and maybe I'll try that. So I got a ton of documentation from when I built this stuff, so I can start bombing your inbox with some things. So
I love it.
Yeah.
I look forward to that for sure, man. Because like I say, I have a lot of respect for the people doing out there, creating innovation and so forth. And yeah, we look forward to trying that for sure.
Very cool. Very cool. So I appreciate you being on the show. I appreciate your time. I know you've been super busy, especially with anniversary activities and feeding turtles. I think that's awesome.
That's right.
So I love it. I appreciate it, man. And if there's anything you need from me, always give me a holler. You've got my cell. You know where I'm at. So I just enjoy meeting new people like yourself. I love interviewing people and I wish the best of luck and happy anniversary to you again. It's been such a pleasure talking with you.
Pleasure is all mine, sir. I appreciate you having me on, man. Big time. And same on my end. If I can ever help do anything for you or any of your listeners, let me know.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom.